We don't need a girl in this house. This family needs a son. Our name is carried by sons, not daughters.
The countdown had started. 10 seconds. Eleanor stood rigid in her Chanel suit, her hand gripping her son, Richard's, forearm hard enough to bruise. She wasn't smiling. This wasn't a celebration. It was an audit. "Don't embarrass me, Richard," Eleanor hissed, her voice low and lethal, audible only to him. 70 years of legacy, the entire family trust. It all stops with you, unless that smoke is blue. Do you understand? Richard, sweating through his expensive shirt, just nodded weakly. He looked pale. He didn't look at his pregnant wife, Vanessa, who was holding the giant black balloon and trembling. He only looked at his mother. Eleanor had waited 30 years for this. Her own husband had been weak. Her son was softer still. The family name, the hundreds of millions in assets, the sheer power of their dynasty, it was all dangling by a thread. She didn't just want a grandson. She required one. A male heir to mold, to harden, to fix the mistakes of the father. 5, 4, 3. The crowd chanted, champagne glasses raised. Eleanor's eyes narrowed into slits. "Give me a king," she prayed to a god she didn't really believe in. 2, 1. Sarah popped the balloon. For a split second, there was just a cloud of opaque dust. Eleanor leaned forward, her heart hammering against her ribs like a fist. Then the wind caught it. Pink. An explosion of vibrant, undeniable, cotton candy pink powder coated the white lawn. The cheering died instantly. It was replaced by a suffocating, confused silence. Richard looked at the pink dust covering his shoes, terrified. He slowly turned his eyes to his mother, pleading for forgiveness for a biology he couldn't control. Eleanor didn't scream. She didn't cry. She went glacier cold. The look of pure, unfiltered disgust she gave her son and the unborn child inside Sarah could have frozen hell over. Without a word, Eleanor turned on her heel and walked away from the party, walking away from her son and walking away from the granddaughter she already hated. They say blood is thicker than water, but in the Eleanor's family, money was thicker than both. And pride? Pride was the deadliest poison of all. To understand why a mother who is originally meant to love and protect would destroy her own son's happiness, joy, and home, we have to start at the end where it all started, to the day the nightmare began. The sunlight in the kitchen was aggressive. It bounced off the white marble countertops of the 4-bedroom house in Sugarland. Vanessa adjusted the sash on her floral maternity dress. She was 7 months pregnant and glowing, though her ankles were swollen, and her back ached constantly. She was arranging flowers, but her hands were shaking. "Daniel? Is she here yet?" she called out. Daniel walked into the kitchen. He was a handsome man, the kind of man who looked like he had everything under control. He was a top consultant for an oil firm, driving a Benz, living the American dream. But right now, he was sweating. He checked his phone nervously, avoiding his wife's eyes. "The Uber just passed the gate," he said, wiping his forehead. "Babe, please, just let her talk. You know how she is. She's only here for 2 weeks. She hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, Daniel." Vanessa shot back. "She called me a gold digger during the toast. She refused to eat the food my mother cooked. Now she's flying in from London for the gender reveal." "Why?" Daniel avoided eye contact. "She wants to see her grandchild. She's excited." "She wants a grandson," Vanessa corrected him sharply. "Specifically. That is the only reason she is here." "Stop it," Daniel snapped, though his voice lacked conviction. "It doesn't matter what the baby is. It's our baby." Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite, short ring. It was a long, demanding press that echoed through the house. Daniel jumped. He rushed to the door, wiping his sweaty palms on his jeans. The door swung open, and Mrs. Eleanor stood there. She was wearing a heavy fur coat, despite the 90-degree Texas heat. She looked past Daniel, scanning the house like a health inspector looking for rats. "The humidity in this state is disrespectful," she declared, stepping inside without looking at him. "Daniel, get my bags." She walked in. She didn't hug her son. She didn't say hello. She walked straight to Vanessa. She stared at Vanessa's stomach for a long, uncomfortable moment. She didn't smile. She reached out a manicured hand and poked Vanessa's belly hard. "Hello, Mum. Welcome to our—" Vanessa started wincing. "You are carrying low," Eleanor interrupted coldly. "Excuse me?" "You are carrying low," Eleanor repeated, turning to Daniel. "And your face? It is round. Puffy." "I'm pregnant, Eleanor. Swelling is normal," Vanessa defended herself. "When I carried Daniel, I was sharp. I was all angles," Eleanor said, looking down her nose. "Everyone knew it was a king inside. A boy sits high. He sits proud. This? This looks heavy. Soft." Eleanor dropped her heavy designer purse on the counter with a loud thud. "I brought the family gold," she announced. "The chain your father wore." "The chain his father wore. It is for the heir. I hope you haven't wasted my flight ticket, Vanessa." Vanessa looked at Daniel, silently pleading for him to defend her. But Daniel was busy dragging 2 massive suitcases up the stairs, pretending he didn't hear a thing. Later that afternoon, the backyard was transformed. It was a who's who of the Nigerian diaspora elite: doctors, engineers, pastors. The smell of jollof rice and Texas barbecue smoke filled the air. In the center of the yard floated a massive black balloon with gold letters that read, "Boy or girl?" Vanessa sat with her friends, trying to laugh, trying to relax. But her eyes kept darting to her mother-in-law. Eleanor was holding court near the buffet, speaking loudly to a group of women she had just met. "In our culture, a firstborn son is not a preference. It is a necessity," Eleanor proclaimed loudly. "Who will manage the properties in Lagos? Who will carry the name? A girl? A girl will just marry and change her name to Smith or Johnson. The legacy dies with her." Vanessa's smile faded. She gripped her glass of water until her knuckles turned white. Nearby, standing by the catering trays, was a young woman named Jessica. She was part of the catering staff. She was young, maybe 24, and beautiful in a dangerous way. Her uniform was unbuttoned slightly at the top, revealing just enough skin. She wasn't watching the party. She was watching Eleanor. And then, she was watching Daniel. Daniel was at the bar, downing a scotch. He looked terrified. Jessica walked over to him, sliding a napkin onto the counter. "You look like a man facing a firing squad," she murmured. Daniel jumped. "Excuse me?" "The balloon," she said, smiling. "You're scared of a balloon." "My mother. She's traditional." "Very traditional," Daniel stammered. Jessica leaned in close, whispering in his ear. "Well, if it's the wrong color, maybe you just need to try again. With better luck. Or a different player." She lingered for a second too long, her eyes scanning him up and down. Daniel swallowed hard. He was a married man, but he was a weak man. And the way she looked at him made him feel powerful. He didn't step away. Moments before the reveal, Vanessa pulled Daniel into the pantry, away from the guests. "She's telling people that if it's a girl, she's taking you back to Nigeria for a cleansing," Vanessa whispered frantically. "Daniel, you need to shut her down. Now." "She's just talking, V," Daniel pleaded. "She's drunk on excitement. She's drinking water. She's sober. She hates me, Daniel." "She doesn't hate you." He lied. "She just worries about the legacy. Look, let's just pop the balloon. Once she sees the baby, once she holds the baby, she'll melt. Everyone melts for a baby." The music stopped outside. The DJ grabbed the microphone, hyping up the crowd. All right. The moment we've been waiting for," the DJ shouted. "Is it a king? Is it a queen? Everybody count down with me." Daniel and Vanessa stood by the black balloon. Daniel held a sharp pin. Vanessa held his hand. Her hand was trembling violently. Eleanor stood right in the front row, holding her iPhone up, live streaming the event to her friends back home. "Come on, show me my grandson," Eleanor shouted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the crowd roared. Daniel jabbed the pin into the balloon. The sound cracked through the air like a whip. Time seemed to slow down. Vanessa closed her eyes, praying. Confetti exploded outward. It drifted down in the Texas breeze, catching the sunlight. It was pink, bright, unapologetic, bubblegum pink. The crowd cheered politely. "Ah, a girl! Congratulations!" Vanessa opened her eyes. She smiled. A daughter. A little girl. A mini-me. Tears of relief filled her eyes. She turned to hug Daniel. But Daniel was not smiling. He was staring at the pink confetti on his expensive shoe like it was radioactive ash. He slowly looked up at his mother. Eleanor had not moved. She lowered her phone. The recording had stopped. The smile slid off her face like oil. The silence radiating from her was so thick, it choked the cheering of the guests nearby. Eleanor walked forward. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. She stepped right up to Daniel. She didn't even look at Vanessa. "You had one job," she said, her voice quiet and deadly. "Mum, it's a girl," Daniel stammered. "We can try again later. We can—" "You," Eleanor said, turning her head slowly to look at Vanessa. Vanessa stepped forward, shielding her belly. "Her name is Amara, and she is your granddaughter." Eleanor laughed, a bitter, dry sound. "Granddaughter? I don't need a granddaughter. I have nieces to braid my hair. I need an heir." Eleanor reached into her purse. She pulled out a velvet box containing the heavy gold chain. The family heirloom. She looked at it, then looked at Vanessa's stomach with pure disgust. "This was for a king," she spat. "Not for this." She threw the box. It didn't hit Vanessa. It hit the ground, bouncing and skidding across the patio until it fell into the swimming pool with a splash. The crowd gasped. "The party is over," Eleanor shouted to the guests, waving her hands. "Go home. There is nothing to celebrate here. Just failure." "Daniel," Vanessa said, tears streaming down her face. "Get her out. Now." Daniel looked at his furious mother. He looked at his crying wife. He looked at the guests watching him. He was paralyzed. "Mom, maybe you should go to the hotel," he whispered weakly. "Hotel?" Eleanor sneered. "I paid for this house, little boy. I stay where I want." She turned on her heel to walk back inside. As she passed the catering table, she bumped into Jessica. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Jessica said softly. "You deserve better. A woman of your status, you deserve a legacy." Eleanor stopped. She looked at Jessica. She really looked at her. She saw the hips, the youth, the hunger in Jessica's eyes. She saw a soldier she could use. "What is your name?" Eleanor asked. "Jessica, ma'am." "Jessica," Eleanor said, her eyes narrowing. "Bring me some tea to the guest room. Green tea. And bring my son with you. He looks like he needs a drink." Eleanor walked into the house. Jessica looked at Daniel across the yard. She smiled. It was a predator's smile. She unbuttoned one more button on her uniform and headed toward the house. Vanessa was left standing in the yard, surrounded by pink confetti, holding her belly, as the first drops of rain began to fall. The storm had officially arrived. The house in Sugarland didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a war zone wrapped in marble and velvet. After the disaster of the gender reveal, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just quiet, it was the kind of silence that precedes a hurricane. Mrs. Eleanor didn't leave. She didn't go to a hotel. Instead, she took over the master suite on the first floor, the one reserved for guests, and turned it into her command center. And she didn't come alone. 2 days after the party, Vanessa came home from a checkup to find a strange car in the driveway. It was a modest Honda, but it was parked right next to Daniel's Mercedes, intimately close. Vanessa waddled into the kitchen, her feet swollen, her back screaming in pain. She dropped her keys on the counter, expecting to find an empty house. Instead, she smelled pepper soup. The aroma was rich, spicy, and familiar. Standing at the stove was Jessica, the catering girl. She wasn't wearing a uniform this time. She was wearing tight jeans and a fitted t-shirt that showed off a flat, perfect stomach, a cruel contrast to Vanessa's heavy, pregnant frame. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa asked, her voice sharp. Jessica turned around, holding a ladle. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Mrs. Ojo, your mother-in-law hired me. She said the house is too big for you to manage in your condition. She hired me to help with the cleaning and cooking." Vanessa felt the blood rush to her face. "I didn't hire you. Get out." "I cannot do that," Jessica said, her voice dropping an octave, mocking in its faux politeness. "Lady Eleanor paid me for the month. Up front." Before Vanessa could scream, Eleanor walked into the kitchen. She looked at Vanessa with the disdain one might reserve for a stain on a rug. "Why are you shouting?" Eleanor asked calmly. "Daniel needs proper food. You are too tired to cook. Jessica is here to ensure my son doesn't starve while you are resting." "I don't want a stranger in my house," Vanessa snapped. "It is Daniel's house," Eleanor corrected her, and he agreed. That was the first knife in the back. Daniel had agreed. When Vanessa confronted him later that night, he wouldn't look up from his laptop. "Babe, it's just help," he muttered, typing away furiously. "Mom is just trying to make things easier. You're stressed. High blood pressure is bad for the baby. Just let Jessica clean. It's temporary." But it wasn't temporary. It was an invasion. Over the next 3 weeks, Vanessa became a ghost in her own marriage. Jessica was everywhere. She was dusting the living room when Daniel came home. She was bringing him iced tea in his home office, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes. She was, accidentally, brushing past him in the hallway. Vanessa watched it happen in slow motion. She saw the lingering glances. She saw Daniel, who used to rush to rub her feet, now rushing to get home to eat the dinner Jessica prepared. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. Vanessa woke up at 2 a.m. The baby was kicking her ribs, hard. She needed water. She pulled herself out of bed, wincing at the pain in her hips. The house was dark, but a sliver of light was coming from the media room downstairs. She walked down the stairs, her hand on her belly. She heard voices. Low, hushed voices. "You're tense," a woman's voice whispered. "You carry so much weight for this family, Daniel. It's just—" "She's always angry," Daniel's voice replied. He sounded exhausted. "I come home and it's just complaints. Your mother this, Jessica that. I just want peace." "I can give you peace," the woman whispered. Vanessa reached the bottom of the stairs. Through the crack in the door, she saw them. Daniel was sitting on the leather sofa, his head back, eyes closed. Jessica was standing behind him, massaging his shoulders. Her hands were moving slowly, rhythmically. As Vanessa watched, Jessica leaned down and whispered something into his ear. Daniel didn't pull away. He leaned into her touch. Vanessa shoved the door open. It slammed against the wall with a deafening bang. Daniel jumped up, spilling his drink. Jessica stepped back, looking entirely unbothered. "Is this peace?" Vanessa screamed. "Is this what peace looks like, Daniel?" "Vanessa, it's not what you think," Daniel stammered, holding his hands up. "My neck was stiff. She was just helping." "Helping?" Vanessa grabbed a vase from the side table and threw it. It shattered against the wall, inches from Jessica's head. "She is in our house at 2 a.m. touching my husband. Get her out, or I swear to God I will burn this house down." "You are hysterical." Eleanor's voice boomed from the hallway. The matriarch appeared, wrapped in a silk robe. She looked at the shattered vase, then at Vanessa. "Look at yourself," Eleanor sneered, behaving like a madwoman. "This is why he seeks comfort elsewhere. You are not a wife. You are a burden. And you," Vanessa pointed a shaking finger at Eleanor, "you are the devil. You brought this whore into my house to destroy my marriage because I didn't give you a penis. Don't talk to my mother like that." Daniel shouted. The room went silent. Vanessa looked at him. He had never raised his voice at her. Not once in 5 years. Now he was shouting at her to defend the woman destroying their life. "Daniel?" Vanessa whispered. "Just go back to bed, Vanessa," Daniel said coldly, turning his back on her. "You're hormonal. We'll talk in the morning." He sat back down. Jessica smirked. Vanessa turned around. She felt a sharp, tearing pain in her abdomen. It wasn't a kick. It was a contraction, a violent, ripping contraction that doubled her over. "Ah!" she cried out, clutching her stomach. Water gushed down her legs, soaking the carpet. "Daniel," she gasped. "The baby." Daniel turned around, his eyes widening in panic. But Eleanor stepped in front of him. "She is faking it," Eleanor said dismissively. "She wants attention because she lost the argument." "I'm not faking." Vanessa groaned, falling to her knees. Another contraction hit her, harder than the first. "Daniel, help me!" Daniel looked at his mother. Then he looked at Jessica. Then he looked at his wife on the floor. "I'll get the car," he said, rushing past his mother. "Go," Eleanor called after him. "Take her. Maybe when the child is out, she will return to sanity." The drive to the hospital was silent. Daniel drove. Vanessa screamed in the passenger seat. He didn't hold her hand. He didn't tell her it would be okay. He just drove. The labor was brutal, 18 hours of back-breaking pain. Because of the stress, the baby's heart rate kept dropping. The doctors were worried. Vanessa was terrified. She wanted her husband. She wanted him to hold her, to tell her they would fix this. But Daniel sat in the corner of the delivery room, texting. Every time his phone buzzed, he would glance at it and hide the screen. "Daniel," Vanessa whispered between contractions. "Please." He walked over, but he didn't touch her. "I'm here, V. Just push." Finally, at 8:43 p.m., Amara Ojo was born. She was tiny, barely 6 pounds, but she had lungs of steel. Her cry filled the sterile room. The doctor placed her on Vanessa's chest. "She's beautiful," the nurse said. "Look at those eyes." Vanessa looked down. The baby was perfect. She had Daniel's nose and Vanessa's chin. For a moment, the pain vanished. The betrayal, the mother-in-law, Jessica, it all faded. This was her daughter. "Daniel," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Look at her." Daniel walked closer. He looked down at the child. For a split second, Vanessa saw a flicker of love in his eyes. He reached out a finger, and the baby grabbed it. "She's small," Daniel said. "She's perfect," Vanessa said fiercely. The door to the delivery room opened. Mrs. Eleanor walked in. She wasn't wearing a hospital visitor badge. She walked in like she owned the building. "Is it done?" she asked. "Mum, you can't be in here," Daniel said weakly. Eleanor ignored him. She walked up to the bed. She looked down at the baby girl resting on Vanessa's chest. She didn't smile. She didn't coo. She looked at the child the way one looks at a grocery receipt. "So," Eleanor said, "another girl." "Her name is Amara," Vanessa said, clutching the baby tighter. "Amara," Eleanor tested the name like it was poison. "Grace. You will need grace to raise a child without a father." Vanessa froze. "What?" Eleanor reached into her bag and pulled out a thick manila envelope. She tossed it onto the hospital bed, right next to Vanessa's legs. "Daniel has made a decision," Eleanor said, "for the good of the family line." Vanessa looked at Daniel. "Daniel? What is this?" Daniel couldn't look at her. He stared at the floor tiles. "V, I can't do this anymore. The fighting, the stress. I need peace. Jessica, she understands the pressure I'm under. She understands the family duties." "Jessica," Vanessa whispered, "you're leaving me for the maid? While I'm holding your newborn daughter." "She is pregnant," Daniel blurted out. The air left the room. "What?" Vanessa choked out. "Jessica is pregnant," Eleanor said triumphantly. "She is 2 months along, and she is carrying high. It is a boy, I know it." Vanessa felt like she was drowning. 2 months, but she only got here 3 weeks ago. They have known each other longer than that. Eleanor smiled, cruel smile. "I introduced them in London last year. I told Daniel to keep her as an option, in case you failed. And you have failed." Daniel finally looked up. "I'm sorry, Vanessa. I'll pay child support. I'll make sure you and Amara are fine. But I have to do what's right for the legacy." "Get out," Vanessa whispered. "We are leaving," Eleanor said. "Come, Daniel. Jessica is waiting in the car. She has morning sickness." "Get out!" Vanessa screamed. The heart monitor next to her began to beep rapidly. "Get out of my room. I never want to see you again." Daniel flinched. He looked at his daughter one last time, the daughter he was abandoning for a maybe son. He looked like he wanted to say something, but Eleanor put a hand on his shoulder and guided him toward the door. "Let's go, my son," she said. "The future is waiting." The door clicked shut. Vanessa was alone. The silence of the hospital room was heavy. She looked down at Amara. The baby was sleeping, oblivious to the fact that her father had just traded her for a ghost. Vanessa didn't cry. She had no tears left. She felt something inside her snap. The part of her that was a wife, the part of her that was soft, the part of her that tried to please people, it died in that hospital bed. She picked up the manila envelope, separation papers. He wanted the house, he wanted the cars, he wanted her to sign away her rights to the business assets in exchange for a small monthly stipend. Vanessa looked at the papers. Then she looked at her daughter. Water filled her eyes as the door behind them clicked shut. Daniel was gone. Eleanor was gone. Vanessa looked at the empty room. On the side table, next to the pitcher of stale water, sat a silver MacBook Pro. Daniel's laptop. He had been on it all during her labor, trading stocks, ignoring her pain. In his haste to chase the air, he had forgotten the one tool that held his entire life. Vanessa reached out. Her hand shook. She didn't grab it to steal it. She grabbed it because she wanted to call him back. She wanted to beg. She checks her bank app on her phone. Balance, $42. Vanessa stared at the screen. She blinked, hoping the numbers would rearrange themselves. They didn't. 2 hours ago, there had been $6,000 in the savings account. Daniel had emptied the joint account an hour ago. She had no ride, no home, and nowhere to go. Desperation tasted like copper in her mouth. She made the call. It rings. Once. Twice. The screen connects. But it isn't Daniel. It is Eleanor. She is in the passenger seat of the Mercedes. Eleanor, Vanessa said, her voice cracked. She hated herself for the weakness in it. Eleanor, it's Vanessa. I do not know anyone by that name, Eleanor said. The Vanessa I knew was a wife. You are. I don't know what you are. Please, Vanessa begged, the tears finally spilling over, mixing with the rain on her cheeks. I am standing on the curb at the hospital. I have Amara. We have no ride. He took the money, Eleanor. Daniel took every cent. Please, just send a car. I'll pay you back. There was a silence on the line. For a second, Vanessa hoped. She prayed that the grandmother instinct would override the monster. You are looking for sympathy, Eleanor said, her voice dropping to a low, lethal register. But you will find none here. You failed, Vanessa. You produced a girl. You drove my son into the arms of a woman who understands his value. She's your granddaughter, Vanessa screamed into the phone, startling a passing nurse. She is 3 hours old. She is a mistake, Eleanor replied calmly. Walk, Vanessa, or call the government. That is what people like you do. Click. The line went dead. Vanessa stared at the phone. The screen went black as the battery died. Vanessa didn't cry. The rejection didn't break her, it cauterized her. She walked to a Motel 6 off the highway, the cheap neon sign buzzing like a dying fly. The Motel 6 off Highway 59 smelled of stale cigarettes and pine sol. It was the kind of place where people went to hide or to overdose. The night clerk, a man with a neck tattoo and tired eyes, had taken pity on her. He accepted the $40 cash she had hidden in her phone case for a room that usually cost $60. Checkout is at 11, he mumbled. Don't steal the towels. Room 114 was small. The carpet was sticky. Vanessa placed the car seat on the bed. She checked Amara. The baby was dry, warm, and sleeping. Vanessa collapsed onto the synthetic bedspread. Her body was screaming. She was bleeding. She was hungry. She looked at the bag on the floor. The silver MacBook gleamed in the flickering light of the television. She grabbed it. She didn't grab it to work. She grabbed it to sell. A pawn shop down the street opened at 8 a.m. A Pro model like this would fetch $400 easily. Enough for formula. Enough for diapers. Enough for a bus ticket to her sister's. She opened the lid. The screen flared to life. Password required. Vanessa stared at the text box. She knew Daniel. He was a man of patterns. A man of ego. She typed, Daniel King 1. Incorrect. She typed, Oho Legacy. Incorrect. She paused. She thought about the woman in the kitchen, the woman massaging his shoulders, the woman carrying the air. She typed, Jessica, 123. The little circle spun. Unlock successful. The desktop loaded. It was a mess of files. Spreadsheets, PDFs, gaming icons. But as the Wi-Fi connected to the motel's open network, a notification slid onto the top right of the screen. A Dropbox alert. Upload complete. Titan leak. Strategy final. PDF. Upload complete. Cayman Shell acts. Vanessa frowned. Titan? Titan Energy was the rival firm. The enemy. Daniel worked for Apex Oil. He was always complaining about Titan. He hated them. Why did he have a strategy file for them? She clicked the folder. She opened the Excel sheet. Her eyes scanned the columns. She wasn't just a nurse. Before nursing school, she had done the bookkeeping for her father's shop in Lagos. She knew how to read a ledger. Column A, Apex Oil construction budget. Column B, Shell Co. Invoices. Bermuda. Column C, kickback to D. Ojo. Vanessa sat up. The pain in her stitches vanished, replaced by adrenaline. Daniel wasn't just a consultant. He was a thief. He was inflating construction costs for Apex, routing the extra money into shell companies in Bermuda, and taking a cut. And the PDF? She opened Titan Leak Strategy. It was an email draft. To the CEO of Titan Energy. Daniel was planning to sell Apex's bidding secrets to Titan to help them win the next government contract. He was playing both sides. He was a corporate spy. Vanessa sat back against the headboard. She looked at the pawnshop listing on her phone. Pawn value. $400. She looked at the screen. Value. Life in prison. Or leverage. She looked at Amara. The baby was stirring, hungry. Vanessa had no formula. She had no milk let down due to the stress. Cry today, my baby, Vanessa whispered, her voice rasping in the empty room. She closed the laptop. She didn't sleep that night. She sat in the dark, watching the door, holding the computer like a loaded gun. The Denny's on I-10 was empty at 3 a.m., save for a trucker eating eggs and a waitress refilling sugar packets. Vanessa sat in a corner booth. She had cleaned herself up in the motel bathroom, but she still looked like a wreck. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her hospital wristband was still on. Opposite her sat a man who looked like he cost money. Mr. Henderson wore a suit that cost more than Vanessa's college tuition. He was the VP of operations for Titan Energy. He looked at the woman, then at the sleeping baby in the carrier, then at the laptop. You said you have the Apex bid, Henderson said. He didn't order coffee. He wanted to leave. I have the bid, Vanessa said. She didn't sound like a victim. She sounded like a woman doing business. And I have proof that Daniel Ojo has been skimming off Apex for 3 years. I have the Bermuda account numbers. Henderson raised an eyebrow. And why are you giving this to me? Why not the police? The police take too long, Vanessa said, and they don't pay finders' fees. Henderson chuckled. It was a dry, soulless sound. You want money. I want a future, Vanessa corrected. She turned the laptop around. She opened the Excel sheet. Henderson leaned in. He pulled out a pair of reading glasses. He scrolled. He stopped. He scrolled again. Jesus, he muttered. He's skimming 15% on materials. That's federal fraud. And here is the bid for the Port Arthur expansion, Vanessa said, clicking the next tab. He was going to sell this to you next week. I'm giving it to you now. For free. Henderson looked up. Free? The bid is free, Vanessa said. The silence is what costs money. Explain. I want $50,000. Cash. Tonight, Vanessa said. And I want you to destroy him. I don't mean fire him. I mean burn him. I want the IRS involved. I want the SEC involved. I want him to lose his license, his reputation, and his freedom. Henderson sat back. He looked at Vanessa with a new respect. You really hate him. He left his daughter on a curb, Vanessa said simply. Do we have a deal? Henderson reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a thick white envelope. I don't carry 50, he said. This is 10. Consider it a down payment. You give me the drive. I give you the cash. I'll wire the rest to an account of your choosing once our legal team verifies the data. Vanessa looked at the envelope. It was thick. It was survival. She plugged in a USB drive. She dragged the files over. Copying. 100%. She slid the drive across the sticky table. He slid the envelope. Vanessa picked it up. Her hands didn't shake. One more thing, Henderson said, standing up. This Daniel guy, does he know you have this? He thinks he lost the laptop in the move, Vanessa said. He's too busy celebrating his heir to look for it. Good. Henderson nodded. Keep it that way. Disappear, Mrs. Ojo. Because when I drop this hammer, the blast radius is going to be big. My name isn't Mrs. Ojo, Vanessa said, picking up Amara's carrier. It's Vanessa. She vanished. She moved to a small apartment on the edge of town, blocked every number, and became a ghost. While she studied for her nursing boards by day and rocked Amara by night, she watched from the shadows. She watched as the leak hit. She watched as the lawsuits started. And she watched the woman who took her place. Jessica wasn't a wife. She was a parasite. As the pressure on Daniel mounted, Jessica was the one handling the finances. Inside the mansion, while Daniel paced the floor worrying about the SEC investigation, Jessica was quietly logging into the family trust. She wasn't paying lawyers. She was wiring millions to an account in the Cayman Islands under the name Marcus King, her real lover in London. She was draining the carcass before it even died. 3 years later. The contrast was sharp. While, in the Sugarland mansion, there was no peace. There was only performative perfection. Jessica had given birth to a boy. William. To Eleanor, William was not a child, he was a trophy. He was the justification for everything she had done. She hired nannies to watch him, but paraded him around at church every Sunday. The heir, she called him. He was dressed in Burberry and Gucci before he could walk. Jessica lived the life of a queen. She drove the G-Wagon. She spent her days at the spa and her nights networking at galas. She treated Daniel not as a husband, but as a bank account. And Daniel? He looked 10 years older. The hairline was receding, the eyes were dull. He missed the quiet. He missed the agouti soup. But he had a son, so he endured. Then came the fever. It started as a flu, but it didn't break. William became lethargic. His skin turned a terrifying shade of yellow. On a Tuesday afternoon, the golden child collapsed in the nursery. The rush to Texas Children's Hospital was a blur of sirens and panic. Eleanor was screaming at the doctors. Jessica was weeping, checking her makeup in the reflection of the glass doors. Daniel was pacing. The diagnosis came 4 hours later: acute renal failure. Genetic. He needed a transplant, or at least a bridge treatment, immediately. We need to test the parents for compatibility, Dr. Aris said, looking at the charts. It's the fastest way to find a match. Test me, Daniel said instantly, rolling up his sleeve. I'm his father. I'll give him whatever he needs. Test me too, Jessica said, her voice shaking slightly. She didn't look at Daniel. She looked at the floor. They drew the blood. The wait was agonizing. Eleanor sat in the waiting room, praying loudly in tongues, commanding heaven to save her legacy. 6 hours later, Dr. Aris returned. He wasn't holding a clipboard, he was holding a manila folder, and his expression was unreadable. He asked them to step into a private office. Is he okay? Can I donate? Daniel asked, leaning forward. Mr. Ojo, the doctor said carefully. We ran the standard HLA typing for the transplant, but we also run a standard genetic workup to ensure no rejection risks. And? Eleanor snapped. Cut to the chase. The doctor placed the file on the desk. Daniel, you are not a match for the kidney. Daniel slumped. Okay. What about Jessica? Mrs. Ojo is a partial match, the doctor said. But that's not the issue. The doctor hesitated. He looked at Jessica. She had gone pale, ghost white. She gripped the arms of the chair so hard her knuckles were white. The genetic markers, the doctor continued, his voice dropping. They don't align. Biologically, it is impossible for you to be the donor, Daniel. Because of blood type? Daniel asked, confused. No. the doctor said. Because you are not the father. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. The hum of the air conditioner seemed to scream. Eleanor stopped praying. She turned her head slowly, like a mechanical doll, to look at Jessica. What? Daniel whispered. That's impossible. We did a test when he was born. My mother insisted. Jessica stammered, standing up. The doctor is lying. This hospital is incompetent. Sit down, Eleanor said. Her voice wasn't loud. It was a low, demonic growl. We checked the records, the doctor said, ignoring Jessica's outburst. There is no record of a DNA test in our system at birth. If you saw one, it was a forgery. Daniel looked at Jessica. He looked at the woman he had destroyed his marriage for, the woman he had abandoned his daughter for. Jessica, Daniel said, his voice cracking. Who is William's father? Jessica looked at the door. She looked at Eleanor, whose eyes were wide with a murderous realization. She looked at Daniel, who looked broken. It was just a fling, Jessica cried, the tears now real, born of terror. In London. Before I came here. I didn't know. I thought it was yours. Daniel, please, he's still your son in your heart. Eleanor stood up. She walked over to Jessica. She didn't scream. She didn't slap her. She simply reached out and ripped the diamond necklace off Jessica's neck. The clasp snapped. Pearls scattered across the hospital floor. You have 1 hour, Eleanor whispered. 1 hour to disappear. If I see you after that, I will not call the police, but you will, wished I did. Vanessa nodded. But in her mind, her evil plan has just been activated. Jessica didn't just run. She vanished. And she didn't leave empty-handed. While Daniel and Eleanor were distracted by the medical emergency and the DNA drama, Jessica had been busy. Over the last 6 months, claiming she was setting up a Swiss health trust for William, she had convinced Daniel to sign over power of attorney for the family's offshore holdings. An hour after she fled the hospital, Daniel tried to check the account to make some emergency transfers, but the balance was reading $0. She had timed it perfectly. The business operating accounts, the savings, the emergency funds, all wired to an untraceable account in the Cayman Islands. The foreclosure notice on the Sugarland mansion wasn't a surprise to her. She had stopped paying the mortgage 6 months ago and pocketed the cash. But the financial ruin wasn't the final nail in the coffin. The doctor had one more piece of news. As Daniel sat in the hospital room, numb from the theft, Dr. Aris returned with a second chart. Mr. Ojo, the doctor said gently, there is something else regarding your test results. What more can you take from me? Daniel whispered. We analyzed your sample, the doctor said. Your sperm count is virtually non-existent. It's likely a condition you've had since birth, or perhaps stress-induced, but the damage is permanent. Eleanor froze. What are you saying? I'm saying, the doctor looked at Daniel with pity, that it is medically impossible for you to father a child naturally. If you have a daughter, she is a miracle. And she is likely the only biological child you will ever have. The weight of those words crushed Eleanor. Amara. The girl she had called a failure. The girl she had discarded because she wasn't a boy. That girl was the only link to the bloodline, the only heir. They left the hospital broken. The bank seized the house a week later. They sold the Mercedes and the G-Wagon just to pay off immediate debts and avoid jail for fraud. They moved into a cheap motel. But Eleanor refused to give up. She was obsessed. She sold her last possession, her diamond wedding ring, not for food, but to hire a private investigator. Find her, Eleanor told the man in the smoky office, sliding the cash across the desk. She is a ghost, but she exists. Find my granddaughter. It took the PI 3 weeks. He found a business registration for Ojo and Associates hidden behind a Shell LLC. He tracked the address to a secluded estate 3 hours away. She's done well for herself, the PI said, handing Eleanor a photo of the electric gate. She's rich, and she's protected. Eleanor looked at the photo. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of greed and desperation. She is family, so whatever she owns is equally ours, Eleanor hissed. She will not turn us away. Daniel, get the car keys. Daniel looked at the keys to the rusted 2018 Camry they had bought for less than $2,000. Ma, she hates us, Daniel said. She is a woman, Eleanor said, delusional to the end. Women forgive, especially when they see the father of their child on his knees. We go to her. We get Amara back. And we get our lives back. They got in the car. They didn't know they were driving toward a closed gate. Eleanor stared at the wall. The legacy was dead. The golden child was a stranger's blood. And somewhere, on the other side of town, the granddaughter she had thrown away was sleeping soundly. 2 months after the hospital revelation, Vanessa sat in her home office. The view from the window was pristine, 3 acres of manicured lawn, a playground where 4-year-old Amara was swinging, and a winding driveway that led to a 10-foot steel privacy gate. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Her clinic, Ojo and Associates, had secured a state contract for pediatric care. She had bought this property in cash. Her phone buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was a proximity alert from the front gate security system. Vanessa tapped the iPad on her desk. The high-definition camera feed filled the screen. She expected a delivery driver. Instead, she saw a dusty, dented 2018 Toyota Camry. The bumper was hanging off on the left side. 2 figures stepped out into the harsh Texas sun. Vanessa zoomed in. Daniel looked hollow. His suit was ill-fitting, likely bought off the rack at a discount store. He had lost weight, but not in a healthy way. He looked gaunt. And Eleanor, the woman who used to wear silk robes like armor, now wore a faded gown. Her wig was slightly askew. She looked small. They walked up to the intercom. Eleanor pressed the button. Vanessa watched them for a moment, shocked and unbelievable. She took a sip of her iced tea. Then, she held down the talk button. "State your business," Vanessa said. Her voice was crisp, filtered through the speaker at the gate. Daniel flinched. He looked at the camera lens, shielding his eyes from the sun. "V?" His voice cracked. "V? It's me. It's Daniel. Your husband," his voice shaking. "I can see that," Vanessa replied. "You are trespassing." "Vanessa, please." Eleanor cut in. Her voice tried to summon its old authority, but failed, cracking into a desperate whine. "We need to talk. It is a family matter." "I don't have family outside this gate," Vanessa said. "Jessica took everything." Eleanor blurted out, gripping the bars of the gate. "She drained the offshore accounts. The house in Sugarland is in foreclosure. She left us with nothing, Vanessa." "Nothing." "And?" Vanessa asked. "We have nowhere to go," Daniel said, stepping closer to the intercom. "Mom is sick, the stress, her heart. V, I know I messed up. I know I was weak. But we share a daughter. Amara needs her father. She needs her grandmother." Vanessa looked out the window at Amara. The little girl was laughing, pushing a toy truck through the grass, completely unbothered by the existence of these 2 strangers. "Amara is happy," Vanessa said. "She doesn't know you, and she never will." "You cannot be this cruel," Eleanor shrieked, the mask slipping. "I am the matriarch. That child carries my blood. You cannot keep her from us. We have rights." "You waived your rights," Vanessa said calmly. 3 years ago, in a hospital room, you handed me a manila envelope, remember? You chose the golden child. You chose the legacy. The boy was a lie." Eleanor cried. "We were tricked." "That sounds like a personal problem," Vanessa said. "V, please." Daniel was crying now, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. "I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever you want. Just let us in. Just for a night. We are sleeping in the car." Vanessa looked at the man she had once loved. She looked for pity in her heart. She searched for that old instinct to fix him, to help him, to serve him. She found nothing, just a cold, clean indifference. "I'm sorry," Vanessa lied. "But I don't run a shelter." "Vanessa!" Eleanor screamed. "Open this gate. I command you." Vanessa moved her finger from the talk button to the red button on the bottom right of the screen. "Alert authorities. You have 5 minutes before the Fort Bend County Sheriff arrives," Vanessa said. "And since you are trespassing on private property and I have a restraining order on file, I suggest you run." She pressed the button. On the screen, a red light began to flash on the gate intercom. A siren chirped. Daniel looked at Eleanor. The panic in his eyes was absolute. He grabbed his mother's arm. "Ma, we have to go," he stammered. "The police. My probation." "No. She owes us," Eleanor screamed, shaking the bars. "Ma, get in the car." Daniel shoved his mother toward the beat-up Camry. Vanessa watched as they scrambled into the vehicle. The engine sputtered, then caught. They reversed frantically, tires kicking up gravel, and peeled away down the road, disappearing into a cloud of dust. Vanessa watched the empty road for a moment. Then, she closed the app. She stood up and walked to the window. Amara saw her and waved. "Mommy, look," Amara shouted, holding up a flower. Vanessa smiled. She walked out the back door into the sunshine, leaving the gate and the ghosts behind it firmly locked. That was the story of the wicked mother-in-law. If you were Vanessa, what would you have done? I have one more story loading, but I need to know where to set it. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and comment your location below. The country with the most comments gets a shout-out in the next video.